Hello, my name's Anne Hawkins, and today I'm going to be talking to Andy Boothman. We're going to be talking about branding. This is part of the series of exclusive business insights for Drive members. So, Andy, good morning. How are you?
Morning. I'm really well, Anne. Thanks.
Good. Andy, would you just like to introduce yourself? Tell people who you are and what you do.
Sure. So my name's Andy Boothman. My company is called Busy as AB, as in my initials, and that's all about creating a buzz for your business. So that can mean many, many things, but what it generally kind of revolves around is the term branding. It's something that's used here, there, and everywhere as a one catch-all term, but it means many, many different things to different businesses. And understanding what's right and what's wrong for your business is probably the most important part of that.
Okay, so let's go right back to basics then, Andy, because usually when people start talking about branding, what a lot of people mean by that is a logo. That's the thing that comes to mind, isn't it? So let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, okay. That's certainly the first thing most people sort of think of as being branding. Branding's much more than that. It's I guess, for lots of people, they pick the logo because that's the easiest thing to kind of connect with and say, we've done this. And the press also, I think, are quite guilty of kind of saying, there's been a big revamp of this brand or a merging of these brands. And they use the logo as a metaphor for that activity. I would kind of take it right back to thinking about, first and foremost, who are your customers and what are your products? So coming up with the right kind of names, before you even think anything about how it's going to look visually is really, really important. So you need to think about the narrative of the people that you're talking to. Is the word for your product or your business something that they even use or would feel comfortable using within their daily dialogue? That is really, really important, because if you're creating let's just say widgets, people are going to say, what on earth's a widget? And you need to build a lot of trust very quickly with a brand. And if they don't understand what it is that you do with the way in which it's described as a word, then it doesn't matter how good the visual is.
Okay. So do you think that the main purpose of branding is about trust?
Most definitely. Trust plays a huge part, particularly today. Online is, the most important channel, I would have thought, for most businesses. It doesn't matter whether you're a B2B business or B2C. Your online presence is going to be everything. And at that point, that trust and how you convey that is so important. And people make these assumptions about businesses, about products, within about 2 to 3 seconds of the first impression that they see.
One of the things that very small businesses really struggle with, and questions that I'm sure you get asked all the time, I know I do, is when the person is the business. If it is just you, where the personality stops and the business begins. How important is it to convey that personality and to be true to yourself?
I think it's really important. Because that's what people are buying into, to be honest. Unless somebody has a really good reason that they don't want to be part of the business in terms of their personality. If it's, it does happen that people want to build a business purely to sell, and they want to keep their distance from it. And so that's perfectly fine. But I would think for most people, you're pursuing a passion, something that you love and you've got real kind of drive to do, and I think it's important that you capture some of what it is about that person in the way in which it communicates out, from the tone of voice to things around the visual way in which things are done. There's lots and lots of different things, but I think it's important that there's a connection there. It also means that person feels ownership and a real connection with what they're doing. And when you have a conversation with anybody about a product or a service that you're offering, if you've got that enthusiasm coming from within you, it's palpable for your audience. They can see that, and it's just really, really important, I think, that you have that connection.
So we go back to one of my favourite sayings, which is start with the end in mind. Know what it is you're trying to achieve, and then all the actions flow from that, so that you're on the right track. Yeah,
I mean, there has been occasions where I've worked with certain businesses and there was a very clear business plan in place. So 5-year business plan, we're going to float this, or we're going to sell it, merge it, whatever it might be within 5 years. And that also is useful to know, because it means that, we knew who their potential target acquisitions and customers were, the people they wanted to impress. So you make sure that the things that you're doing sit true and are comfortable in that environment as well. So, whichever way somebody's going, whether it is just a personal business that they're wanting to grow and develop, or whether it's something that they just are looking to grow, sell, and repeat that process. It's important to know from the outset what is the vision, because otherwise you're slightly kind of having to second guess some of the movements and some of the tone of voice and things that you're establishing for that business going forward.
Yeah, okay. So let's look now at how people might be able to achieve this, Andy. If it's a small business, not much budget, perhaps just one person on their own, so they haven't got a team of creatives like you to design lovely things. What would people do for the first steps?
Really, first, there's some really simple things that people can do that doesn't involve them outsourcing anything, to be honest. First and foremost, consistency. Be consistent in terms of whatever language, marks, colours, styles that you're using. Be consistent wherever that appears, because that immediately builds trust. If I go to a Facebook page and the logo or the name is presented in the same colour, same style, it's the same tone of voice as what's on a website, or something that you may have seen in a piece of printed literature, whether you've been to a restaurant or you've just simply walked past a restaurant or a retail space, or any business, to be honest, from that point of view, making sure that wherever somebody comes in contact with your material, it's presented in a consistent and professional sort of style. Don't use Comic Sans, for example.
And for those people who don't know what Comic Sans is,
it's like a childish handwriting font. It gets terrible press. There's probably some occasions where it's very appropriate for nurseries and things like that, but there's not many, and it seems to be one of people's favourite fonts for thinking they're going to do something nice, touchy-feely and friendly. It doesn't work, sorry.
Okay, and how much does people's personal preference come into this? Should they be thinking about what they like, or should they be really thinking about what their target market will respond to?
I would certainly say the latter. Whether you hate red, love purple, hate caps, whatever it might happen to be that your personal preference is, it's really irrelevant, because your customers are the most important people in this relationship. Identifying what resonates with them, the things that they like, also looking at your competitors as well and saying, actually, I can see why these guys are doing quite well, and acknowledging that and kind of working around it, as opposed to sort of putting yourself in this silo situation where you think, no, we know it all and we've got the best way forward. Looking around and doing some competitor analysis, speaking to people about what it is that they like, not just about you and your product, but also about your competition as well. And if you can do that, you'll learn a lot, first and foremost, but it will help you to shape your communications and understand how to have proper connections with the people you want to talk to.
So we've got the visual aspect, we've got the language and tone of voice, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then we come on to content. There's huge emphasis these days on content marketing.
Yeah.
So what about the types of content that you think might work best for different types of business? And I realise as I'm saying that's a huge question.
That is a very big question. I think first and foremost, you need to be prepared to share things that are of value to other businesses, so that they can get a better understanding about what it is that you do and how you deliver. Because no one's an expert in all these different things. We're talking about branding now, and that's got many, many facets to it. And that's just one term. There's businesses that span all kinds of different sectors and all kinds of specialisms and disciplines. So understanding and being clear, I think, is really, really my top tip on that.
Okay.
And then in terms of how you would actually sort of get that content out there, well, we've got a plethora of social channels available to us today. Do a bit of research first and foremost, coming back to what I just said earlier. Understand your customers. Where are they? What are the things that they like doing? Do they spend a lot of time on Facebook? You don't know. Spend some time, do the research, find out which one of the channels is the place where your information has got the most value and will resonate with the people who are in the right frame of mind when they're using that channel as well. Certain things like Twitter is very, very business focused. So if you haven't got a B2B proposition, probably not going to work that well on Twitter, for example, and you can find out all these demographics quite quickly. The actual channels themselves are slightly reticent to tell you how it works, but if you look at any of the media that are commenting on social channels, they'll quickly tell you, how good Twitter is for certain things, Facebook for others, Instagram, etc. But it comes back to value and clarity. And I think more than ever, people are looking for that kind of outreach to be stretching out and saying, this is what I'm prepared to tell you, because I understand that you need to know more about what I do before we can kind of make any proper connection.
Yeah, okay. And would you just talk us through some of the brands that you've worked with that work particularly well, and perhaps some of the, in the short time we've got available, some of the strategies that work for you?
Okay. Big brand stuff that I've worked on includes Kellogg's, where I was lucky enough to be working on all their cereal boxes. And so in terms of developing that out, quite interesting, because massively established business, and what do you do new with cereal boxes that hasn't been done before? There was a lot of things about heritage that they were really, really keen on, particularly in light of own label, and the kind of ever threat that presents to them, because they're one of the two big corporate businesses that have said, we will not do own label, categorically across the line. And so heritage and the backstory now, it's a business that's nearly 200 years old, so it's just got an amazing backstory, and I think that's one of the things that is really, really powerful. History within what you do, it counts for so much, and I can't think of any other business that's got that kind of pedigree behind it. So that was really interesting.
That's an interesting point, though. Before we leave that, there are people who will say, look, don't tell me you've been in business since 1831. I don't care. What can you do for me? So I guess it's a balance between knowing what to leave out and what to put in.
Yeah, you're not going to major on it because it will bore people, to be honest. But equally, by bringing in a few little pieces here and there, little chunks that sort of say, we've been doing this for nearly 200 years, or we've got 100 and odd years doing this, it says to people, we know our stuff. And it comes back to what we were talking about before, about actually offering up information and knowledge. They've got the knowledge around how to do this stuff.
I guess it all adds to credibility, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, very much, very much. What was really nice with working with Kellogg's is the time that I was working closely with the team there was when they moved into doing cereal bars for the first time. So we went through a massive MPD program, developing all kinds of weird and wonderful shaped bars, and doing focus groups about which are the easiest shapes to eat. Wrap.
Could you just talk about NPD, what that means?
Yeah, NPD is new product development. So you'll find within big corporate businesses that they'll have an entire department dedicated to this. Kellogg's, I think it was a team of 30, 40 people, and they had their core products. They were looking at how they were going to do cereal bars in this case. And a major part of what they wanted to do was really innovate the sector in terms of how these things were going to be packaged. So we looked at all kinds of different shapes, from triangles, not your Toblerone style triangles, physical 3D triangle, whether that was something that was easy to put in your pocket and easy to sort of nibble on, and bars, whether the bars be square, rectangular, all manner of different things. And then what's the box process that you put these things in? And how does that bulk merchandise on a shelf? So you'll be familiar with gondola ends and things like that in supermarket spaces where your big brands are displayed really great big blocks.
Yeah.
So you pretty much, they take ownership of sections of the store. Kellogg's really were keen on that because that's a big part for them, especially with a much smaller box at the time that we were moving to cereal bars. There was a lot of concern about the actual Kellogg's name. It needed to be quite prominent because this was a new sector that was growing quickly. But equally, they had very little sort of background in that. So,
I guess that consumer goods is something that we're all familiar with. That's the kind of branding that we're surrounded by. Messages, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of messages every day. What about more obscure things? Perhaps B2B things that people might not have heard of. Where do you start with something like that?
Where do you start with something like that? Pretty much the same sort of things, to be honest. What you're looking for is what are the connections? Why do people sort of go to that business for that service? What is it that appeals to them? You're looking for those same sort of triggers that someone would go and buy something off a shelf. It's just that they're going to a business to purchase it. So it's about humanizing it first and foremost. I think one of the nicest projects for me to get involved with, looking back now, was a piece of work for Pure, the digital radio people. This goes back probably about 5-6 years ago, something like that. As digital radio was just getting ever bigger, and iTunes was coming to the fore all the more, Pure recognised that they needed to offer their customers more of a service than just simply here's a product to listen to digital radio. So they developed an online portal, their equivalent of iTunes for radio stations, which anybody who knows anything about digital radio will know there are thousands upon thousands of digital radio stations around the world. It's unbelievable how many of these things there are. We were working with a team in the UK, developers in New Zealand, to build a portal basically whereby you could log into this as a Pure customer and access anything and everything. All listen back features, all sorts of stuff that we take for granted now. At the time, it was all very cutting edge. The team in New Zealand had come up with a really great search facility, and it was wonderful in terms of what it could do. But in terms of the navigation and how you used it, it was awful, completely horrendous. Clunky just doesn't describe it. But that's not their role. Their role was to make something that delivered all this functionality, and it did all of that brilliantly. This was where I ended up getting involved with the project, because the guys at Pure said, we've got this, we're really happy with how it works, but it's terrible to use. We need to sort out the user experience and how customers are going to use this. And this comes back again to understanding what people want and branding in its many sort of facets. These days, there's so many different ways that it can play out. In this particular example, it was all about the user experience, the on-screen, the buttons, the menus, the navigation, where you do and don't put graphics, and making it as simple as you could, to be honest, because there was just so much information there that it blew your mind, quite frankly.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And so they vary. I'm just trying to think of a more B2B example to give.
One of the other things I was thinking of is there an example you can think of, perhaps a favourite piece of branding that you think works particularly well? Maybe not so much in the big world, the stuff that we're all familiar with, but something that has caught your eye. And could you just talk us through perhaps what makes it successful, and what the elements that you think are particularly important that they've got right? Sorry, I've sprung that on you.
That's a big one. Let me just have a think about that.
I'm just aware that your LinkedIn profile and presence and your Facebook posts, you're often highlighting somewhere where a brand has updated, or they've put a new look on something. And there was some chocolate bars recently that I remember thinking what an attractive design it was, and because you're a designer, you pick up on things that the normal consumer wouldn't pick up on, because you're analysing it, I guess.
Yeah, you do look at it in different eyes. I think as well, it's quite interesting to find out what the aim was. Something that I would say that I'm quite critical of is when a new brand is launched and everybody wades in to say, oh, they've just changed the colour from one shade of blue to another. You need to understand what was the backstory to that. What was the need to address it in the first place? Why did that business feel that sort of passionate about doing that? Because these things are never just done for the sake of it. It's done as a reaction to what's happening in the market, to what a competitor's done, to some feedback from customers. There's many facets that can be affecting this. So it's never as straightforward as just saying, oh, we think we want to be greener now, so we're going to make the blue look a bit more green. It's just not like that. I think if I was to give an example of something that I think has been done really well, there was a Bournemouth University identity that was rolled out probably about 6 months ago. I think that they've done a really, really nice job of balancing the kind of quality image that you'd expect from a university with it having a youthful edge to it. Really nice colour palette that was used as well. Just connected for me. I thought that's really, really strong. I can see what they're looking to do. They've got a nice balance of the two things going on. And I could see how it would work, with that audience.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay. One of the things we're going to be looking at in another interview is registering trademarks and the things that you can protect and you can't. So we'll go into that in a lot more detail with professional experts. Yeah. But is there some basic things that you can just make people aware of with that? I know there was a thing recently about could Cadbury's trademark their brand of purple or something, wasn't there? Yeah. So what do people need to look out for in the early days, particularly?
Well, I think one of the important things is, I've talked about understanding your customers and looking at what competitors are doing. These days, it's really, really important to just generally Google around whatever term or service it is that you're looking to provide. Because first and foremost, you need to find out who else is doing it. There's very few things in this world that are unique. And being aware of what everybody else is doing and saying about their products is really, really critical, because you need to find your own happy spot, what it is that's special to you in the way that you're delivering it. And that's going to be, you're going to have to Google a fair bit of stuff and wade through umpteen pages to find out just what is going on and what isn't going on. Because whatever you end up calling your thing, that's if someone else is already using that, that's your worst nightmare, especially if they've already got it trademarked. Because that will, if it's in the same sector, well, you're back to square one. If it's in another sector, then that may or may not have a bearing, but it will certainly have an impact in terms of how you're going to name your site, your domain, everything you do on social channels and things like that. So there's
I remember having a great fright. It was shortly after you designed the Drive logo for us, that someone launched a TV program called Drive, and it had that sort of sloping impact of
yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
It was very, very similar, and they did it after you. And I'm sure they haven't looked at our. I'm sure they haven't looked at our logo.
Exactly. I've got a couple of clients who have actually just registered names, products that they've come up with titles for, and they've not necessarily been in use. Some of them have, but then other people have not done research, and lo and behold, things get brought up. Because I think what is quite interesting around all of this, and this is a level of detail I think a lot of people are completely unaware of around image use, logos, and also any kind of trademark term. There are people out there who are employed 24/7 to police and monitor this stuff. So if you just think you're going to rip an image off somewhere or pinch a bit of something that looks like so-and-so's logo and pass it off as being part of yours, there will be a letter that will come through the door on the email or whatever, because you'd be amazed how many people there are out there that are doing that. I can give you first-hand examples from clients who have tried to do it and have got caught. It might not be that they get caught within 6 months. In one example, I had a client that had been doing something for 5 years with some images online that they'd not paid for and that they had no right to use. But that, you know, there are people out there that that's their job, and it does come back and it bites you. But if you don't do it properly, it's really quite a big thing.
Okay. So let's try and sum all this up now. So going back to a small business that really want to try and get their branding right. Maybe they're rebranding. Maybe they're just starting from scratch. So let's just go through the checklist, if you like, the things that you think are important. So where to start?
First and foremost, start with customers. Hopefully you've already got some customers, and look at who your most loyal customers, best customers are, and to say, right, what is it about what we do, what we provide, that these guys like, that makes them come back, that made them come to us in the first place even.
Right.
Spend some time just talking to them, asking them those questions. If they are your best and most loyal customers, they will feel great to hear you ask them, what is it that you like about us? How can we make it better? That is a win-win conversation, because you're kind of enhancing that relationship, really. So take that on board. Look at what other people are doing in your sector. Make sure you understand what competitors' strengths and weaknesses are, and then start to think about, where do you fit? Is there something there that's already strong, or is there something there that kind of halfway and could be developed further? But you've got to be really clear about what it is that you want to achieve, what you want to be known for. Most businesses are known for one or two key things. You look at things like Apple, and everybody says, "Oh, Apple this, Apple that," but it's actually the phone is the thing that's put them on the map. The computers have been around for forever, but no one was ever interested until the phone came along.
I was looking at that yesterday. Actually, it was 1984 or something when the first Mac Pro came out. It's quite unbelievable, isn't it?
It is. It goes back a long, long way, and even now, with all the many things that they do, the first thing that people think of when they think of Apple is the phone. Let alone watches and everything else. So be clear about what it is that you want to be known for. I would say that those were my kind of key tips for getting going.
And interesting, in all of those tips, you haven't once mentioned a logo or an image.
Well,
there's a lot of stuff needs to come before that.
There is a lot of
obviously.
stuff that needs to come before that, and I think the other thing that people kind of can get slightly hung up on is when you start talking about identity. Identities only have certain lifespan to them as well. If you look at the biggest brands in the world, the likes of Shell, Kellogg's, McDonald's, you look at any of their sort of brand icon history, you'll see it's changed quite a lot over the years. Colours may still be the same. There's often still some element there that takes you back to where it began. Apple is another one. If you look at the original Apple logo, it's this incredible intricate thing. It's a big illustration, actually, when it was first started by Steve Jobs. So don't get sort of hung up on that this is the image of the business for the next millennia, because it's just not going to be like that. Good brands, good businesses look around and reflect what's happening in life in general. They reflect trends in terms of colours and fonts and photography, all these sort of things. They'll change. There's nothing worse than when you go and look or you have a first interaction with the brand and everything's how it was 20 years ago because they said, oh, this was great. Yeah, it was great, but it moves on, and it'll be another 20 years till it's back on trend, by which point it'll be completely sunk. It's a fact. It's a fact, unfortunately. I think people sometimes think, build a business and it'll stand its ground because so and so have done it. If you look, none of those businesses have stood still in terms of how they're presented and how they communicate. So you want something that's good, you want something that's robust and has got a certain life about it, because you don't want to be chopping and changing. You'll see most brands probably do what I would say was a sort of in-depth refresh about once a decade, as a rule.
Okay.
But smaller businesses can be more agile, but you need to build that consistency, particularly in the early days in the SME sort of zone. You've got to be clear about what it is that you're going to be and how that's presented, what it is that you can show somebody that they can say, oh, I know them and what they do in a very, very quick way. That's the most important part of it.
Okay, that's great.
Okay.
That's fantastic, Andy. A lot of information there, and we'll put a summary of that up, and also all your contact details.
Thank you.
But thank you very much for your time and your knowledge and wisdom and expertise. People can follow you on Facebook. I know you're on there, and on LinkedIn and Twitter. So if they want to know what you're talking about in terms of branding and what's happening, it's very easy to keep up with your thought process. And we're eternally grateful to you for designing the Drive logo, which is everybody just thinks is wonderful, hugely successful. So it's appropriate that you're giving this this time today to tell other people how to create that kind of presence.
Thank you.
Once again, thanks very much, and we'll catch up with you again another time, I'm sure.
Okay, and thanks. Bye. That was